What's up? Today we will be going over our official rankings for the pound for pound. As we all know, the updated pound for pound rankings will be released tomorrow in around noon. So, I'm just gonna give my opinion on what the real rankings should look like. And as you will see, obviously this isn't going to be a prediction video because there's no way these are going to be the rankings. However, this is my take on what the real top 15 pound for pound should be. So, starting first, let's just go over the criteria, right? Okay, so obviously pound for pound, the definition for pound is who would win or what would the rankings be if every fighter was the same weight, right? So to go off of that, I weigh the recent performances of the fighters with the last three fights weighed the most, and then also the quality of opponents they faced, the method of victory, especially with the overall dominance of the fight. Um, for example, a knockout, if you just catch somebody, isn't always better than a decision if a decision was extremely dominant. Um, so yeah. And then another thing that goes into the criteria is other recent wins. That would be notable wins against high quality opponents within the last, 5 to 6 fights rather than just the last three. So here's the current pound for pound rankings. I'll give you a second to look over that. And now we'll get to ours. So just outside the top 15, we have John Jones, Sean Strickland, Shavkat Rakhmonov, and Hamzat Chimaev. I'm not going to go too much in depth with these guys, but definitely the person I'm going to, advocate the most that shouldn't be out of the top 15 is John Jones. Um, John Jones in the last three fights, well, he came in, submitted a guy with zero wrestling and a guy who clearly wasn't built for the big moment, most recently. And then also his last fight outside of the Gone fight was in 2020, and that was the biggest robbery of all time. Um, and then the fight before that, that was also a split decision win to a can, right? Um, so yeah, and then Shavkat, I think he has the skill. Same with Hamzat. I think they definitely have the skill to be ranked pretty high in a division if everyone in the UFC was the same weight. However, their resumes just don't match up with the guys on this list. Not yet anyway. I think they'll be in the top 10 pretty soon on the official UFC ranking. And then Sean Strickland, again, he absolutely annihilated and humiliated Israel Adesanya. But he also has a loss to DDP and a win to Abus Magomedov. But I mean, Abus isn't even ranked in his own division. So how highly can we really, have that for Sean Strickland's resume? So getting into the 15 spot, I have Aljamain Sterling. He's 2-1 with wins over Triple C, uh, and Calvin Cater with the obvious loss to O'Malley. That O'Malley loss, however, he was winning round one. He just got caught. Um, but I can't have him much higher just because Sean O'Malley did beat him, and I don't have O'Malley that high on this list either. Um, you know, but as we saw just a few days ago at UFC 300, Aljamain is still very much that guy. And I can't wait to see what he does at the featherweight division. Um, and also his performance against Triple C was a very good performance. However, it wasn't until the almost fifth time watching it that I could truly give that win to Aljo. So that's what really puts him at the 15th spot rather than higher ranked. However, I think Aljo definitely beats most of the guys in the UFC, and his resume and his recent performances both in the last three and the last five with wins over TJ Dillashaw in that second Piotr Jan fight really solidify and make a case for him to be in the top 15. All right, moving on. We have Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley's biggest weakness is his resume and the quality of opponents. Um, in his last three fights, it's Jan, Sterling, and Cheeto. Um, the only reason I don't, even though that is a good resume, in the face value, I don't, he just caught Aljo, right? He lost that first round, so I can't really put too much stock into that. And also Piotr Jan, that was an all-time robbery. Um, I when I first watched that fight, I didn't think O'Malley won a single round. After a few rewatches and looking at UFC stats .com, I can give him maybe one round. But I still think that's a very clear 29-28 decision win for Piotr Jan. And the only time he's been dominant was the second Cheeto fight. And Cheeto just didn't really show up. He didn't start swinging until the last round when he was already down. And that was a pretty boring decision. He did get it done. He did dominate. I just can't put again, I can't put much stock in that. And the only reason he's 14 is for beating Aljamain and Sterling. So 13th spot, I have Dricus du Plessis. Um, he has faced two quality opponents in the last three fights, and Sean Strickland and Robert Whitaker. However, again, I think Sean Strickland won that fight, pretty convincingly. However, I do understand that it was a close fight, and I'm not calling it a robbery. Just my opinion. I think Dricus du Plessis clearly lost that fight. And then he did have a pretty dominant performance over Robert Whitaker, especially in that second round. Didn't win that. I don't think he won that first round. But in the second round, that was clearly his, and obviously followed it up with the knockout, or putting himself in the conversation for a title shot. He just hasn't really fought the guys yet. Those were his only two, notable opponents in his entire career. And personally, I think he went 1-1. I just can't put him over 13, as of right now. Number 12, I have Merab Dvalishvili. Okay, so hear me out, right? That Piotr Jan fight, absolute domination. Piotr Jan is a uh is a very, very notable win. He's a very tough competitor. He's top three skill. He's a top three skilled fighter in his division. I know he went on that three-loss skid. However, that was just very, very unfortunate. He got the split decision with Aljo. And then he didn't get the decision of O'Malley, even though I feel like most people think he clearly won that fight. And then he had to face Merab, right? And Merab's caliber and kind of his skill, his performance in that Piotr Jan fight really put the world on notice. He took him down so many times. His cardio was insane. It just didn't really allow Piotr Jan to do that much damage, right? And then also Merab's fight against Triple C, that was pretty dominant. And Triple C is not a bum, all right? In one, like, just this summer, a judge said that Triple C should be champion. And I myself, for the first five times rewatching that fight, I thought Triple C should have been champion, right? And Triple C showed that he wasn't washed in that first round. He came out quick. He took the round from Merab. But Merab, just really locked in and showed the world what he could do and absolutely put on a show and just took everything away from Triple C. And it humiliated him, right? All right, so moving on to 11, Tom Aspinall, right? I think he's the real champion of the UFC. He beat a guy in Sergey Pavlovich who's really, really quality, really high quality, really high skilled fighter in the heavyweight division. And then he's also had, dominant wins over Tyson Tybura in that Pavlovich fight, knocking him out in the first round. I know he's 2-1, but that one loss against Curtis Blades was a freak injury. If he doesn't if he doesn't injure that leg, maybe things are different. But I can't say that's a win. but I'm definitely taking into consideration that injury, right? And then he's also fought against Volkov and Spivak, two very high quality guys in the heavyweight division, and he dominated those guys, right? Made him look like easy work, which not a lot of guys can do. And Tom Aspinall is just so well rounded, especially at the heavyweight division. He's probably the most skilled in that heavyweight division, aside from John Jones. But I can't even say John Jones is. We haven't really seen his striking, and we haven't really seen his grappling. We know he can submit a guy in Cyril Gane, right? But that's pretty much it. Um, so just based off what we know in the heavyweight division, Tom Aspinall, is definitely the highest ranked guy, right? Um, and he deserves the 11th because he has a solid resume and he's dominated everybody he's faced. Okay, so moving on, top 10, we have Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira is a guy who used to be in that Islam Alexander Volkanovski kind of category. Just elite, 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 at everything, in every aspect, right? But in the last three fights, with the loss to Islam, getting dominated by Islam, and then his most recent loss to Arman Sarukian, we can no longer put him in that elite tier, right? However, um, Charles is definitely a guy who's still, very good. He's very good. He's very skilled. He almost choked out Arman in the final seconds. So we still have to put we still have to put respect on his name and respect in the pound for pound rankings. We just can't put him in that top five, top three anymore, right? I mean, his only dominant win was against Dariush, and those wins against Gaethje, Poirier, and Chandler were in 2022 and 2021, right? Um, but I still think if he fought Gaethje, Poirier, and Chandler, he probably wins, right? He's just not that elite tier anymore. So that drops him down to number 10. The number 9 spot, we have Adesanya. I mean, like this guy still has a lot of power, a lot of skill, as we saw in the Pereira fight, but he just didn't take Sean Strickland seriously, and he paid for that, right? Um, so I mean, he got dominated by Sean Strickland, and that really hurt his legacy right now and his legacy for in the future. In the GOAT debate and middleweight GOAT debate, right? Um, so that loss to Strickland, the loss to Pereira, back in November of 2022, um, just showed that Israel is no longer a guy who is untouchable. He's showed that he's human. Like Charles, he's no longer in the extremely elite category. He's just in that very, very good category now, right? So that's why he's at the 9 spot. Um, maybe with a win over Duplessis, that could, put him back in the top 5 debate. But for right now, just going off of his resume and his record, he's at the 9 spot. 8 spot, Alexander Volkanovski, right? So in his last 3 fights, he got brutally knocked out by Islam, Ilya, and then he perfect gamed Yair. Okay. And then in his fourth most recent fight, he showed that he could hang very much with Islam, as you'll see, the in my opinion, the pound per pound number one fighter. So he's definitely still very skilled. This guy just needs to take a year off, really train his body, make sure he's healthy, to come in against either a rematch against Ilya or a title shot against Max or a tune-up fight. He just needs to take the time that his body needs to recover. Because I think most of his losses aren't really skill-based. They're just, health-based. Um, and that's why those losses I'm not weighing as heavily as Adesanya. Even though Adesanya was up on Pereira back in November, and just like lost because he got caught, and once Pereira catches you, it's pretty much over. But I mean, this guy, he perfect gamed the interim champion just in back in this summer, so it's not been forever since he won a fight. But he did get pretty humiliated against both Islam and Ilya. Even though Islam was only on 11 days notice, that loss definitely hurts his legacy, right? I just can't put him over the next guys upcoming. Still love Volk, still think he can I still believe he can get back into the top five by the end of the year or by the end of next year. But just right now, I need to put him at number 8. 7, with the most recent win over Charles Oliveira, split decision, but I still think Arman, pretty handily, beat Charles. There were a few, times where Charles almost got that submission off, those submissions off, both in the first and last round. But Arman showed that he's elite, right? He showed he can beat Charles, um, that he can hold off the greatest grappler of all time. Um, Arman has put himself in that elite category. I just can't put him, higher than 7 just because of his resume, right? Like he hasn't really fought the guys yet. Um, in his last three fights, he fought, Oliveira and Dariush are the only notable guys. That Dariush fight was dominant, but it seems like a lot of people have been dominant over Beneil Dariush. And that Charles fight, again, split decision. So it was pretty close. However, Arman got the job done, in my opinion, got the job done pretty easily. I was kind of shocked when it was a split. And he proved that he could beat very good that those elite guys in his division. Um and Charles Oliveira was what, like five or seven on the UFC pound for pound list going into 300. So Arman's definitely going to get some love tomorrow when the official rankings come out, and he's getting love right now for beating a guy in Charles. Okay, so number 6, Max Holloway. This dude dominated Justin Gaethje, the guy who was supposed to get a title shot in the lightweight division. And in his last 3 wins, he's fought Gaethje, Korean Zombie, Arnold Allen, all dominant wins for Max Holloway. And he's also in his last 5 to 6 fights, he's also dominated Yair and absolutely humiliated Calvin Kattar, right? Max Holloway is a guy who can uh who can just piece you up for 5 straight rounds. He's just the guy you can always find a decision win through his boxing, through his high level fight IQ. And he's proved in his most recent fight to Gaethje that he should get a lot of love in the pound for pound rankings. And that's what he's getting right now. So number 5, we have Ilya Topuria. Beat number 3 pound for pound in Alexander Volkanovski. That's pretty much it for extremely quality opponents. He also did beat Josh Emmett and Bryce Mitchell, who are pretty respectable in the featherweight division. And both of those wins were dominant as well as the Volk. I mean, he just made Volk look so easy, right? He goes out, wins round 1, and then he goes out round 2 and just pieces him up, right? He just pieces him up for the knockout. Um, Ilya just showed that he's an elite guy, not just in his division, but in the entire organization of the UFC. He's 5 on the UFC pound for pound list. He's 5 on mine. All right, next. Alexandra Pantoja. I don't understand how the UFC does not give Pantoja more love, right? I mean, he's ranked 10, even though he's fought every single guy in his division, and he's dominated all of them. In Royval and Moreno, Alex Perez, he's dominated all of them, right? And even before that, in Brandon Royval again, for the first time in Manel Cap or Cop. These guys on this list, all contenders for the flyweight belt, and he's killed all of them, right? He just fought the guys, he's beat the guys, he's dominated the guys. I don't understand uh how he's top 10 or how he's only 10 on the pound for pound rankings, probably because it's flyweight. Um, so it's probably some bias there, but I'm giving the man his flowers because he deserves this, right? He deserves this. So number 3, Alex Pereira. Last 3 fights, he's 3-0. However, that Jan fight probably should have been a tie. He might have even lost or draw. I'm sorry, draw. He might have even lost. Don't really know. Pretty controversial win. Um, so that's so that's why he's not, number two. But he absolutely dominated Jamal Hill, and dominated Yuri Prohaska. Also, winning against Adesanya that first time, and he won the first round in their second fight, pretty easily, and was winning the second round before he got caught. And then also beat, the former middleweight champion in Strickland and just absolutely dominated him. Okay, so Pereira, all the guys that he's faced the guys, he's dominated the guys. Um, Number two, Leon Edwards. I mean, he beat the pound for pound number one in Kamaru Usman. Then he did it. Then he came back and did it again, right? So beat Usman twice and then dominated Kobe Covington. Kobe win isn't as great as Usman, but Kobe's also a guy who's like he's fought for the belt three times. He's solidified himself as a quality opponent in the welterweight division. The only thing that's stopping Edwards from being number one is the man himself, Islam Makhachev. He goes out and beats Volk in his home country, convincingly, with a unanimous decision all around. Um, then he wins the belt, and before that, he won the belt to Charles Oliveira, a guy who everyone thought was, unstoppable, was the next GOAT in the lightweight division. He beats him in round one, then he knocks him down round two and submits him. Submits the guy who has the most submissions in UFC history and the greatest BJJ artist in UFC history. Um, debatably with Mighty Mouse, but if you're beating a guy who's getting comparisons and debated with Mighty Mouse, like come on, you got to be nuts, right? And then he came back, Volk. I know it was 11 days notice, but he did what he was supposed to do with a Volk on 11 days notice. He knocked him out in the first round, made it really quick, really easy. Islam, he's gonna go out, do the same thing he did to both Charles and Volk the second time, even the first time to Dustin Poirier, and that's not going to be that competitive of a fight. Islam just he's going to be pound for pound for a while. It's proved that he's pound for pound now, and he's going to reign over the lightweight division for a long time. So that's it. That's it for the my opinion on the top 15 in the UFC right now. Um, Stay tuned for episode number two. We're gonna record tomorrow night, and the first episode's up. And also, stay tuned for more tier lists, more slideshows. Go watch the last tier list video. So peace out.